What is up, guys? It is the Bluebloods here, and we are here with a special episode. So, this is going to be a reoccurring episode. It usually won't drop on Fridays, but I wanted to go ahead and get this one out here since all the preseason polls have dropped and a lot of other channels were already dropping it. This is going to be a reoccurring show every Monday morning right here on the Bluebloods. We're going to do our top 10 after every single week. And so, this is our preseason top 10. And so, just a few reminders. For me, I put a lot of weight into this year over last year. This is a preseason poll for the 2021 season. So, what you did in 2020 should only have so much of an impact. So, a lot of future talk here about what these teams are bringing to the field. So, first of all, man, subscribe now, hit that post notification bell. And guys, just so y'all know, I really want y'all to list y'all's preseason top 10 right now below in the comments. That way we can debate. I'll make sure to respond to everybody and we can have a good discussion about this. And I'm sure we're going to disagree on some stuff. And as you see, it's going to be on our right here, the preseason top 10. They're all covered up. We're going to go one by one, break down our top 10 and go from there, man. So let's not waste any time as we start with number 10, where I have the Texas A&M Aggies. And that's lower than a lot of people have them. The AP poll had them at 6. Now, I know this is probably going to be one of the more controversial rankings on my list, but I do have some serious concerns for the Aggies. And it mostly starts at quarterback. I think the O-line lost a lot of good pieces last year. Linebacker is a small question mark, but the secondary, D-line, and wide receiving core are too good to keep them out of the top 10 for me. Jimbo Fisher is facing a tall task in replicating all his success from 2020. Haynes King is stepping in for Kellen Mond. Him and Zach Calzada battled it out for the QB battle, and the Aggies are loaded at wide receiver. Isaiah Spiller returns, which should really help Haynes King develop throughout the season. Anaya Smith is probably going to be the leader at the wide receiving core. Jalen Watermuir is the real deal at tight end. But Spiller is going to be the key here. Can he get enough rushing yards? Can he get enough production to really help King as he tries to find his rhythm early? Because that Colorado game early, I think, is a trap game for them. And for me, the defensive line is really what still makes them a top 10 team. I mean, DeMarvin Leal is probably one of the best defensive tackles in the country, in my opinion. And then you add in Tyree Johnson, Jaden Peavy, Shamar Turner, and then also McKinley Jackson is a guy on the inside you can't sleep on as well. So this D-line is going to be legit. It's probably the best D-line Texas A&M has had in a long time. And then you also add into the account of Damani Richardson, who's one of the best safeties in the country to lead that secondary. They got a bunch of corners like Jalen Jones and all of them that are long, rangy, will be able to play man covers. They're fast enough and smart enough and disciplined enough to play zone. Jimbo Fisher is going to have a tough job replicating last year, in my opinion, due to the inexperience at quarterback. And then there's some question marks on that O-line. But for me, Texas A&M was an easy choice for at least the top 10. I just think there's some other teams when you look at what they're bringing back this year that slightly go above them. But don't be surprised if Texas A&M moves up quickly in these rankings. And so that brings us to number 9 here. And we got the Oregon Ducks for me. They were 11 in the AP poll. For me, they're a clear favorite out west in the Pac-12. And I don't think people are giving Mario Cristobal enough credit for what he's building Eugene. For me, the Ducks should have one of the best defenses in the country. I think the skill positions are there. The biggest question mark for me is Anthony Brown, and then potentially Todd Thompson if he takes over that QB spot, which I think he should. If Oregon expects to take that next step, guys, and really compete for a college football playoff spot, he's going to have to take a giant leap forward from his time at Boston College. I know it was last year before the injury. He was playing much better. But for me, Joe Moorhead is going to be the key. Can he put Brown in good situations? And also that second week against Ohio State will be a huge telltale sign if Brown's really the guy to take the Ducks to the promised land. Todd Thompson, I think, is the better quarterback, the highest rated quarterback in Ducks history, even above Mariota. I don't think they're going to hesitate to throw him in if Brown's not, I guess, moving the needle enough. Because when you look at this offense, Devin Williams, Micah Pittman, CJ Verdell are all there to surround Brown, and that gives the Ducks one of the best weapons, like the weapons collection in the country. The offensive line is probably the best in the Pac-12. And then Troy Franklin and Dante Thornton are also some freshman wide receivers that I think the Ducks are going to utilize in certain spots, especially late in the season, that are really going to make them, I would say, competitive against some of the top teams in the country. And for me, it's just kind of like A&M. So there's some questions surrounding the QB spot, but I think this Oregon defense is better than what Texas A&M is bringing. You've got Kayvon Thibodeau, the number one edge rusher in the country. And on top of that, you got 2 5-star linebackers behind them in Justin Flo and Noah Sewell. And so that combines to have one of the top front sevens in the country. And the big difference for me is the secondary. Now, last year, the secondary was very hyped. Javon Holland, Brady Parisi, all them guys were coming back, but then they all opted out. Now you look at the secondary, everyone's returning. Michael Wright, Jamal Hill, Verone McKinley, Bennett Williams, they all return. And I think the Ducks have high-level starters at every DB position. I think personally they should be a top 10 unit in the country this year on defense. Ohio State's going to be a huge test. USC is not going to be a pushover. And also Washington in their division is probably going to be their toughest test. But if things click at quarterback, I think Oregon could shock a lot of people this year. So based on the potential and the small I think they're just a tad bit better than A&M on defense. I'm going to give them the slight nod here at number 9. And then at number 8, I have the North Carolina Tar Heels, who were 10 in the AP preseason poll. Mac Brown, guys, I know, we had our episode about Travis Shaw this week. He's done an A+++ job at rebuilding, recruiting, developing talent within the Tar Heels program. They're going to be the number one contender against Clemson in the ACC. I think the losses to Diami Brown, Daz Newsome, you look at running back with Javonte Williams and Michael Carter, that's going to be tough to replace. But I think they did a nice job bringing in new talent, transfers to really step up and compete in those positions. And my biggest question mark here is the O-line. It played extremely inconsistent. You look at the Florida State game last year, in which in the first half, it didn't help Sam Howell out at all. If they realistically want to live up to this ranking, which I think they can, they're going to have to play better. And if they play better, this is a real ACC and college football playoff contender and a real top 10 team here. And when you have Sam Howell, he's the key to all this, man. He's in my opinion, it's really Spencer Rattler and Sam Howell are 1 and 2, and everybody else is right now a very far away. There's not even an argument to not have Howell and Rattler 1 and 2. He's one of the Heisman favorites as well. He has the ability to be a game changer, and now that he's entering his 3rd year, he knows the offense as well as he's going to make it. He's going to have more freedom. He's going to have that experience to play in the big game. When you look at what he's done, he was top 10 in pass grade, passing against pressure, accurate pass rate, big time throw rate, and true drop back rate. Howell brings all the tools you want, and we know in this day and age of college football, you have to have a quarterback that can get you there and can make the plays to win the game for you, and Howell is that for the Tar Heels. And at wide receiver, I already mentioned who they lost, but you look at Bo Corrales, Josh Downs, Karif Brown, all those guys are primed to make huge impacts, and all these guys are highly rated, highly recruited guys that have tons of potential. Then at running back, Todd Chandler is no slouch, who transferred in from Tennessee. That's going to go a long way in replacing Javonte Williams and Michael Carter for the Tar Heels. And for me, the defensive side of the ball is made, man. You've got Tony Grimes and Storm Duck at corner, which I think are going to be one of the best DB duos in the entire country, right up there with Elias Ricks and Derek Stingley at LSU. Then on the D-line, you got Keyshawn Silver, Tamon Fox at D-line. Those are going to be great. The one thing I'd do is replace Chaz Surratt in the middle of the defense, which I think they can do. That is still a question mark. But for me, when you look at the potential of how you look at some of these young, talented wide receivers, and you just look at how that team was playing, especially when you look at that Miami game, that's exactly what Mac Brown wanted, man. They put up 62 on Miami, which was a top 10 team in the country. I think the UNC Tar Heels are the real deal. So I have them at 8 just because I think they have that game-changing quarterback that Oregon and A&M do not have. And then at 7, I agree with some. I told you guys when we had our AP poll episode, I had a lot of agreement with the AP poll, and that goes with here. I got Iowa State at 7, which they're 7 in the AP poll as well. They shocked the world last year, guys, and I say shocked the world because if you asked anybody after that Week 1 loss, 31-14 to Louisiana Lafayette, before anyone thought Louisiana Lafayette was going to be the real deal, no one would have thought Iowa State was going to be a top 10 team. Matt Campbell has done a great job, guys. He returns, I believe, over 20 players with starting experience for the Cyclones. They're one of the deepest teams in the Big 12, and for me, they are by far the stiffest competition for the Sooners, and it all relies on Brock Purdy, guys. When you look last year at where they struggled and where they succeeded, it all relied on how Brock Purdy played. When he was playing on his A game, they were a very tough team to beat. But when he struggled, when he was inconsistent, he didn't play as well. And so for me, Brock Purdy's the key. I think Charlie Kolar at tight end is going to be a huge, huge factor. Probably one of the best tight ends in the country. And then Xavier Hutchinson is a name I want you guys to know. I know the wide receiving core is a big question mark for Iowa State, but I like Hutchinson's potential, and especially, late in the year last year, he really started to come along. He has to be the go-to guy for Purdy in those big situations. And then how do we mention Iowa State, guys, if you don't mention Breece Hall? He was the leading rusher in the country last year, unstoppable, probably one of the top candidates for the Doak Walker this year. And I think he's got to be an integral part of this offense. He was key when they knocked off Oklahoma in the regular season, didn't play as well in the championship game, still had a great game. That's where Purdy has to step in and be able to carry the load at times when, people are loading the box and keying in on Breece Hall. But if he can be as consistent and as explosive and as dynamic as he was last year, Iowa State is going to be a very tough team to beat. And on defense, man, and this defense, I believe, only lost one starter from their, I think it was Lawrence White from their team last year. And when you look at the question mark, is edge rusher. I don't know if they have someone who could consistently get to the quarterback. That's going to be a problem when you go up against elite teams like Oklahoma, or if you even get to the playoffs when you go up against an Alabama and Oklahoma and Ohio State, someone like that. You have to get to the quarterback. I don't know if they have that guy they can trust to do that. But for me, Mike Rose is a key here too. He's going to be the Mike linebacker. He's the quarterback of the defense. He is arguably one of the most experienced and underrated linebackers in the country. He was the highest graded run defender in terms of linebackers last year by Pro Football Focus. And when you look at the secondary, they return a lot of talent, guys. You got Greg Osworth, Anthony Johnson, and Tavon Kyle all back. And I think John Heacock, the defensive coordinator, knows he has experience, which is going to allow him to, complicated schemes at times, run a versatile set of things, and also make sure he can trust his seniors. He's going to take some risks because he knows he can trust these guys to be in the right spot and also make the right play. So I think Iowa State's a dangerous team this year. I don't think last year was a fluke. So right now I have Iowa State at number 7. And I know this pick right here, probably going to be my most controversial today. I have the Cincinnati Bearcats at 6. They were 8 in the preseason poll, which I guess isn't much lower. And I know a lot of Power 5 fans are like, man, you are tripping on this. But listen, this was a top 8 team for most of the season. They came down within a play of beating Georgia in the Peach Bowl last year. I know that Georgia was missing some players, but they still had Daniels, Pickens. They had a lot of players still playing. Azeez Ojulari was playing that game. For me, they're returning most of their significant pieces, and Luke Fickell has done an amazing job recruiting, developing talent. And the thing that separates Cincinnati from most Group of 5 teams, guys, is how historically great this defense could be. And I say historically because it's probably one of the best teams, the best defenses in the Group of 5 that we've seen in a long time. And also, I just want to mention this: they have 2 significant road games. A top 10, I guess if you go by the AP poll, a top 10 matchup between Notre Dame. They were at 12 on my list. And you also have Indiana, who's probably a top 15 team by the time that game comes around if they can win early in their schedule. But when I look at this defense, guys, this is a unit that I think will finish top 15 in the country. They were one of the best units last year. Their secondary was elite at times last season. And when you return a player like Ahmad Gardner, guys, and I want y'all to remember that name. Ahmad Gardner is one of is my favorite for the Thorpe Award this year. He's yet to allow a passing touchdown against him, guys, and he's only allowed a handful of yards and catches. He's a true shutdown corner, has the length at like 6'2" to really go up against any of the best wide receivers in the country. And you pair him with Kobe Bryant, who was a top 5 cornerback in the AAC last year. It gives them a scary duo. The question mark is the safety spot, but I think both of these guys are going to offer enough potential and talent and execution to really hold it down in the back end of this defense. And also the defensive line is where it really separates for the Bearcats and the rest of the group of 5. Myjai Sanders is one of the best edge rushers in the country. It was ranked, I believe, top 10 in edge rushers for pass rush grade by Pro Football Focus. Also, the addition of Jawan Briggs from Virginia, who was a 4-star recruit, Cincinnati native, and also Curtis Brook, who graded as one of the best D tackles in the AAC last year, are going to give the Bearcats a D line that can stop the run and rush the passer in the biggest moments. And when you look at the offense, guys, they've returned Desmond Ridder, and he's taken small steps in his passing development each year. So if he can continue to develop his passing, this could be a huge problem for teams that are facing the Bearcats moving forward. And also you have Jerome Ford stepping in as the number 1 running back, transfer from Alabama, explosive, and I think he's going to be a key for the Cincinnati Bearcats. And also second best wide receiving core in the AAC. And also they have an outstanding tight end room, and I think this offensive line is going to be able to hold their own. So I really think Cincinnati is deserving of this 6th spot, but I couldn't put them any higher. It's probably their ceiling right now. We'll see how it turns out, especially against Notre Dame and Indiana, which are going to be tough road tests. And then we get to everyone probably knows who the top 5 teams are. It's really just a debate on who is where. And so at 5, I put the Georgia Bulldogs. I wanted to have them higher, but with the injury concerns, I had to put them here at number 5. But for me, looking at Kirby Smart's history for Georgia, I think this might be the most talented team he's had while he's the head coach of Georgia. And if it wasn't for losing George Pickens and Eric Gilbert, possibly, Pickens was an injury and Eric Gilbert has some mental health issues. He had to step away. So we don't know what the status of Gilbert is. Pickens probably at best would be back early January. It really limits them in these rankings. I think they could have been the 3 or 4 team, but without those 2 guys, I really had some question marks about their wide receiver, so I had to keep them at 5 here. I do think JT Daniels' potential is outstanding, especially if he continues how he was playing last season toward the end of the year, when for some reason Kirby didn't start him earlier, but he was arguably right there behind, Mac Jones, Justin Fields, and Spencer Rattler at the end of the season as some of the best quarterbacks playing in late December and January. But for me, it's going to come down to, can he bring this young wide receiving core to the forefront of college football? Can he get them to make plays against the best opponents they go up against? Dominic Blaylock, Karis Jackson, Jermaine Burton. Some of them have pretty significant experience, but all of them are unproven as a number 1 wide receiver. So for me, which one of these guys can step up and really be the go-to guy like Pickens was, where if Daniels is in trouble, he knows he can go to Pickens and Pickens is going to make a play for him. So all these guys are talented, but who can be the game changer? And I feel like that's held Georgia back at times in recent seasons, is they didn't have that game-changing wide receiver consistently. But the reason they stick at 5, guys, is the defense is going to be elite. It always seems to be under Kirby Smart, especially the front 7. Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter are going to be 2 of the people on that defensive line you're going to want to watch. And then Nakobe Dean and Quay Walker are going to be the 2 linebackers that arguably might be one of the best linebacking duos in the entire country. So he's going to have that front 7, and they're going to be stifling against the run, guys. And I think they're going to be a problem rushing the passer because I don't think a lot of teams are going to be able to stop them. And then also Nolan Smith and Adam Anderson at edge are going to combine for a terrifying duo. Then when you look at that back end, Keely Ringo and Tyke Smith are the two guys I look for. We talked about Tyke Smith on our SEC preview, one of my favorite defensive backs, probably the best nickel hybrid safety guy. I guess that star position in the country. He was one of the best players in the country last year at West Virginia. He transfers in a huge area of need for the Bulldogs. We also talked about fall camp, Amir Speed looking outstanding at corner for the Bulldogs. So those three guys are going to make up the secondary. I think Georgia is going to have one of the best defenses in the country. So for me, the Bulldogs had to fall at 5 here. And then at 4, I have the Ohio State Buckeyes. They were 4 in the AP poll as well. They have so much talent along the line of scrimmage, guys. I'm talking offense and defensive line. And the wide receiving unit for this team may be the best in the country. But for me, youth at quarterback and question marks in the secondary are the only thing holding them back from cracking my top 3 right now. But Ryan Day has a chance to realistically win the title this year if that quarterback position turns into a strength, because the Buckeyes are going to be hard to beat if CJ Stroud is that guy that Ohio State fans and experts think he is. They're going to have 2 big tests coming out. And when you look at the schedule, it's Minnesota, Oregon, week 1 and 2. But then after that, they have 4 straight games where they might be favored by 20 to 30 points a game. So if he can get through these 2 games with wins, I don't know if they're going to be touched the rest of the season. And when I look at Stroud, he has everything you want if you're a young quarterback, because the 2 best units on this team are probably O-line and wide receiver. And you look at Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, Jackson Smith and Nigba, and also Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, you can just go down the list. They're probably 7 deep at wide receiver, and he knows he can get to Olave, get to Wilson, and they can go make plays for him. Olave created the most separation of any wide receiver other than Devontae Smith in the country last year. He's going to be open a lot. All Stroud has to do is put it on the money. And Ohio State's offense is going to continue to roll. The offensive line is going to be fine. You look at Thayer Munford and also Nicholas Pete-Friere at the tackle spot. They are mountains of men. This offensive line is going to be absolutely stout. And the secondary, I know, has a lot of unproven pieces, young pieces, some big question marks. But for me, the D-line is going to be able to help there a lot when you look at Tyreek Smith, Zach Harrison as edge rushers, Haskell Garrett on the inside. And then you also have Jack Sawyer, who showed out in spring practices according to all reports. He can make a big impact. I think Ohio State is going to be a very scary team. The only reason I have them at 4 is because it's always a question mark for CJ Stroud or whoever was going to be the starting quarterback for the Buckeyes. So for me, that's the main thing. And also some questions in the secondary kept them at 4 for me. And then at 3, I have the Clemson Tigers, man. Listen, okay, so I'm very high on this team. I like what they're bringing. But for me, the one thing I have a question mark about is, one, can DJ replicate how good he played in the 2 starts we saw? It was a loss and a very close win to Boston College. So I want to see if he can continue, I guess, improving and leading this team. And then also, how we talked about this on our fall camp update, how are they going to replace Travis Etienne? I don't know if they have a running back that can replicate what he does. I think it could be a nice balance between Will Shipley. I think Will Shipley is very good, and I'm very interested to see how he plays, but I don't know if he's even going to get the start. They've been supposedly rotating out a lot of different running backs for Clemson. So for me, I just want to see, can they replace Etienne? And also, can that O-line be more consistent than it was last season? The O-line last year against Ohio State and down the stretch showed a little bit of flaw. They've returned Jordan McFadden is going to be one of the keys on that offensive line. They also got Tristan Lee, 5-star offensive tackle. But for me, the defensive line is really what separates some guys. You look at Brian Barisi, Miles Murphy, Xavier Thomas, KJ Henry. I mean, Tyler Davis. I mean, the list goes on and on and on for Clemson. And Brent Venables is one of the best schemers in the country. So I think the defense is really going to carry this team early, especially against Georgia. And you look at the secondary, you get Nolan Turner back, Andrew Booth, Sheridan Jones. Those guys are going to make a significant impact. And also, you look at a guy like Trenton Simpson, who I don't think enough people are talking about. I think Trenton Simpson is going to be an X factor. When you watch Clemson later in the year, he got a lot of starts. He was making plays all over the field. He's an inside linebacker that played running back in high school. It shows how explosive he was. He was one of the best running backs in his entire state in North Carolina, leading that team in rushing and being explosive, playing both sides of the ball. So he's athletic, and he's the exact type of Mike linebacker that Venables loves to put in his system. So for me, Clemson's at 3 here. I think they're a close 2, if that makes sense. I could see them if you wanted to have them 2, but for me, I feel like this number 2 team just has less question marks, and they lost a lot less to the draft and everything like that. But let's get to my second team here, and it's Oklahoma. And listen, I've been critical the first few years on this podcast. Don't drink the Oklahoma Kool-Aid. I couldn't help it. I'm drinking it. I made a whole episode about why I think they should be one of the favorites this year. And it all starts with the offense, man. Kennedy Brooks, Eric Gray at running back are the next great running back duo for the Sooners. Also, you return Spencer Rattler, and that's really what I think gave them the nod over Clemson for me, is that you have real answers to. You got 2 running backs that would probably start at Clemson right now. You got Spencer Rattler, who I think is the better quarterback right now for DJ. And then on top of that, I think the wide receiving core top to bottom is a little bit better for the Sooners. So for me, that's kind of what gave them the nod. The offensive line, significantly better. They brought in a lot of pieces this offseason, and also the only significant loss was Creed Humphrey, and they got a few guys competing for that spot that I think are going to be just fine. And when I look at the wide receiving unit, this is where it's impressive. You got Jaden Hazelwood, you got Michael Woods, a transfer from Arkansas, Theo Weiss, Mario Williams has been showing out. You also got Austin Stoner, who was one of the top rated tight ends in the country before he got hurt. And then Marvin Mims absolutely exploded onto the scene last year. I love what he brings to the offense. And for me, the difference between this Oklahoma team and past Oklahoma teams is I think their defense is going to be so much better. I mean, you look at their defensive EPA, guys, in 2018 was 128th in the country. Last season, it was 28th. This defense has a real shot to be a top 10 defense in the country, guys. And it all starts with Nick Bonito at the edge spot, was the number 1 graded edge defender last year. They got Jalen Redmond, Perrion Winfrey, Isaiah Thomas, all on the D-line. All 3 guys had a 20% or better pass rusher win rate, and Redmond was rated as one of the best run stoppers in the country last year. And secondary is a big question. I think DJ Graham is a great cornerback. He's going to be the lead boundary guy who's probably going to be on the best receiver every single week. But Pat Fields and Justin Broyles are going to be key pieces at the safety spot. And it's just being consistent for this Oklahoma team, guys. If they can be consistently better week in and week out, they're going to be fine. It's just, can they stay healthy and can they just execute the game plan? Because I think that's really what's been missing for Oklahoma in the key games. The defense is going to be amazing this year. And so I think that's kind of what gives them the nod over Clemson. I think Clemson's D line's better, and Clemson's linebackers are probably better, but I think the secondary might be better. But that offense for Oklahoma is just that good this year. So I'm going to give them the nod right now. But I think Oklahoma, Clemson, Ohio State guys, I think they're right there, and I can see how those teams could be interchangeable for some people. So comment below what y'all think. And I think it was no surprise, guys. It's Alabama at number 1. I mean, this team, listen, I get Bryce Young's a first-year starting quarterback, guys. But when you look at this team, man, they are so talented top to bottom. And I know they lost a lot in the draft, but Bryce Young comes in as one of the highest rated quarterbacks to ever commit. If he's not, I'm pretty sure he is, but I don't want to make that statement and be wrong. Then you return John Mechie at the number one wide receiver spot. And that offensive line, you just come off of the highest rated offensive line class, probably some people are calling it the best O-line class in history. You got J.C. Latham, Tommy Brockmeyer, and you got his brother. I mean, this offensive line is going to be one of the best in the country. You also, on the defensive side of the ball, Malachi Moore, Jordan Battle, Will Anderson at edge, Josh Jobe at cornerback. This defense is going to be legit. You got Kool-Aid McKinstry, man, at the corner spot as well, already getting a starting spot. I think this defense, guys, and I've said this on the podcast, this defense could be the best Nick Saban defense at Alabama since I think that 2012 unit that, dominated all the way until they just blew out Notre Dame in the national championship. I think that's the type of level of talent that we could see from this Alabama defense. I love what they're bringing. You also got Chris Braswell as an edge rusher. I love it. The wide receiving spot is a question mark. I think Aggie Hall has showed out in spring practice. JoJo Earl is going to be a Jalen Waddle type of guy. He also reminds me so much of Rondale Moore, which is scary to put on this Alabama team. The O-line is going to be arguably a top 5 unit in the entire country. Brian Robinson is going to be interesting at running back, but they got some really, really talented guys behind him that I think could carry the load if he doesn't work out or ends up going down with injury or something like that. When I look at Alabama, when your biggest question mark is a 5-star quarterback that was the number one QB in the country by some recruiting services, that shows you how good this team is. At linebacker, you still return Christian Harris. You got some young guys coming in. This Alabama team right now, looking at it, has almost no holes. They are the unanimous number one team in the country. They're the defending national champions. And Nick Saban has a serious team on his hand, man. And I am so impressed with this dynasty, and I'm so impressed with what they're bringing back. But I think Alabama right now has to be the unanimous number one pick, and I am so excited to see this all work out. But guys, my top 10 is on the right. Bama at 1, Oklahoma 2, Clemson 3, Ohio State 4, Georgia 5, Cincinnati 6, Iowa State 7, UNC 8, Oregon 9, and A&M 10. Comment below your top 10. Where was I wrong? Where was I right, man? We can go back and forth. I just appreciate y'all tuning in, man. Make sure to subscribe. I'm so pumped for the season to be starting. I'm so pumped to have all this college football content coming for y'all. Go check out our Week 0 previews, which are available now. Dropped yesterday, and there'll be some coming out later today as well. And also, so next week we'll have all the Week 1 preview. We got previews dropping all week. Storylines coming, so make sure to subscribe. We appreciate y'all tuning into the Blue Bloods, man. I can't thank y'all enough. Can't believe we ever got over 700 subs. So appreciate y'all for that. But guys, hope y'all have a fun weekend watching college football. We'll be back with recaps and previews next week. But for the Blue Bloods, man, we are out.